We've got the final number tallies, I guess, for the year of 2023 regarding comic book sales. Now, Aaron, we don't really have real sales data, but we do have rankings available from Comic Hub. It's all tabulated by ICV2.com. And then Comic Book Revolution did like a year-end wrap-up talking about the performance of DC and Marvel, and I thought there was some interesting stuff in here.
I mean, it's always hard to say because everything now is such guesstimates. It's like this is based off of, some prime stores, but it doesn't really take into account, your smaller stores or even some of the bigger stores that don't use Comics Hub. So it's the most reliable thing that we've got. But yeah, it is always a little bit of a mystery because we're never going to know the actual sales numbers unless the companies decide to release those. And I don't believe they have any incentive to do that right now.
No, not really. But this does give us an idea of some of the trends and everything that's happening. And the big trend was in 2023, DC had an absolute shit year. DC Comics had a total of 298 issues out of 631 in the dead titles walking category, titles outside the top 100. Now, while in terms of raw numbers, DC Comics only had 24 more dead titles walking than Marvel, the difference is highlighted when you compare the percentages. A massive 47% of all DC comic issues in 2023 were dead titles walking compared to 33% for Marvel. That is almost half of all DC Comics new issues in 2023. Now, we do know that Marvel normally dominates DC. They're almost like the little brother at this point. But DC is actually putting out the better books as far as the quality is there. But they still, half of their stuff didn't even really make a dent.
No, because half of DC's stuff is just garbage titles. Now, a third of Marvel's is garbage titles, and maybe more. But, there are some bad titles that people are buying for whatever reason. Amazing Spider-Man's always going to do a certain number just because people are filling in their runs. Same thing with Batman. The problem for DC is that on their big titles that they actually are putting effort into, those are decent enough to keep readers on board. But they just keep leaning into the worst writers for so many of their titles. You get Fire and Ice by Joanne Starer, which is absolute hot garbage. Hawk Girl by Jadzia Axelrod. These are things that would be a hard sell with a talented creative team, but when you're just casting people for their identity traits and they can't write a comic book and they don't know the character's history and they can't dig into anything interesting and all they can tell is slice of their own life stories, which is not interesting to anybody except them, those titles are going to be dead titles walking.
Yeah, and they do it to more prominent characters, too. You think about Megan Fitzmartin and what she did on Tim Drake Robin. You think about what Tim Sheridan's doing right now on Alan Scott, the Green Lantern, and all that kind of stuff. And you almost can't blame DC Comics fans because eventually they put one of these really terrible writers on the character that you like, and you're like, man, fuck this.
Yeah, and it makes, for me, it makes me buy even less of the titles that I was enjoying. I kind of just tend to walk away from the entire company at that point because there's just so much bad and there's so little care put into these titles, these characters, the creators that they hire. They're basically just bodies filling seats. It's no wonder that so many of these dead end creators go on and on about socialism and how much they want socialism in this country, because that's essentially what's going on in the comic book industry. You have bigger titles that are bringing in money that are supporting these titles and giving paychecks to creators that do not deserve them and titles that do not deserve to be on the shelves.
And DC Comics have also done I guess it's a gimmick. They've done it a couple of times now, where they'll shut down their entire line, put everything on hold. Remember during Future State where they did that, basically everything halted for 3 months. And then obviously this year they did it with Night Terrors as well, where you're giving everybody a chance, to kind of just walk away or be reminded what else they could be doing with that money when you tell everybody, yeah, we're just going to stop that book that you like for 2 months straight and put somebody else that you don't like on another title associated with them, associated with the event that you didn't want to read in the first place.
Yeah, Future State is where one of the shops that I did ordering for, where we just jumped out of comics altogether. That was the breaking point for us, looking at the numbers and looking at the way things were going and saying, well, the numbers right now are not good. And after this DC event, they're going to be even worse because people are going to have that jumping off point. We already had people going, that had pull lists that were saying, you know what, when Future State comes along, just cut my list down, cut all these books off. I wasn't really enjoying them, and now they've kind of given me a reason to get out, rather than wait out this bad storyline that I'm not enjoying. I think I'm done. And so yeah, it's a really bad idea to interrupt your whole line. It's a really bad idea to get people out of the habit of buying your books.
Now it even kind of transfers to the top 25 as well, because they did tabulate all the placements for DC, Marvel, and indie comic books in the top 25. Marvel Comics enjoyed dominance in the battle of the top 25 every month in 2023. Marvel Comics placed a massive 198 issues in the top 25 during the year. DC Comics came in second by placing 81 issues. This highlights the massive gulf that existed between Marvel and DC in 2023. DC Comics cannot be considered legitimate competition to Marvel Comics as long as they're being dominated like that, and I have to agree with the analysis. You know, you're talking Marvel almost had 200 titles total. DC didn't even almost make it to 100. They have nothing in the top. They basically just have Batman up there.
Yeah, and they tried to leverage Batman, like more Batman, more Batman, more Batman, instead of actually trying to build up these other characters. And these are iconic characters. This is the thing that's always weird about DC, is they have some of the most iconic characters in comics, in pop culture, and they always shoot themselves in the foot. They're always the sub, and Marvel's always the dom. You know, it's like they have this inferiority complex, it seems. And it didn't seem that way under DiDio. It seemed like Dan DiDio was always pushing, and you know, he made some decisions that you know, people didn't agree with, and we didn't agree with, and maybe even he didn't agree with. But at least he tried things. You know, and now so when they fired DiDio, they put Jim Lee in charge, and Jim Lee is just sitting there, just letting things happen. You know, he's got an editorial team that's not very good, and that just hires people and puts out books. And I doubt he even knows half of what they're putting out. I doubt he's even aware of it. I doubt he even looks at it. He's asleep at the wheel, as we often say.
And the crazy thing is, Marvel isn't very good right now. They have one ongoing title that I definitely suggest everyone read, Incredible Hulk. For most of 2023, they had another title, Moon Knight. But outside of that, it's all hit or miss. ASM been pretty bad of late. The Avengers, not very good at the end of Jason Aaron, and not very good with Jed McKay on there. Doctor Strange isn't very good. Captain America has been in flux for several years at this point. Iron Man is now an X-Men character. The entire X-Men line basically just sucks. So this is the time, if DC Comics were ever going to come up, you know, and maybe you know, catch up or almost catch up, this would have been the year, and they still couldn't do it.
No, you need leadership. You need somebody in there, like putting Jim Lee in there. Jim Lee has secured the bag, as the kids say. You know, he's rich. He doesn't need to try. He's locked in. He's good. He's going to get a golden parachute. He's not hungry. He's not hungry, and he's not interested in making DC the number one company. It seems like he's barely interested in being there, aside from showing up on the red carpet and posting pictures on his Instagram. What you need is to hire somebody who's hungry, who's like, you know what? I want to take Marvel down. I want to, you know, surpass them. I want to be number one. I want the industry to be healthier. I want to get good creators back, and I want to put them on these books, and I want these, you know, these characters to be in stories that are going to, you know, we're going to be able to sell for years and years and years in trade paperback form, because they're just so damn good that people are constantly recommending them to new people who, you know, want to check them out. And DC cannot do that. They cannot do that under Jim Lee. They cannot do that with the editors that they have in place right now. You need somebody who gives a damn, you know, not somebody who's just sitting there collecting their check. And it's until they realize that, until they actually get somebody in there who's got some balls, you know, this is never going to, DC is just always going to be this little company that's barely getting along.
Man, I'll tell you, as a DC Comics fan, and I'm a much bigger DC fan than I am Marvel, I want to run through a wall for you right now. Like, let's do that. That's exactly what I want, because DC does have the best heroes, bar none.
And they've got such great rogues galleries. You know, you've got so much to draw on, and they just never seem to pull the trigger on it. And when they do get something that starts to have some momentum, like you put Jeremy Adams on The Flash, and everybody's like, I'm done with The Flash. Tom King ruined Wally West. I don't care anymore. You know, they're just going to pull the rug out from under me again, and people resist it. And then Jeremy Adams just does solid work. And the word of mouth starts to spread that, like, hey, this book is actually good. This writer actually seems to care about what he's doing. You know, he's not just interested in trying to get some headlines by, you know, be doing the next big deconstruction. I'm so tired of deconstructions of heroes. You know, I just want to read some heroic tales, and he's delivering them, and the book is starting to grow. It's starting to get some momentum. Sales are coming back. So what do? Let's yank him off of that and stick Cy Spurrier on there. Cy Spurrier, who has never drawn a dime, couldn't draw flies to shit, that guy. And we're going to put him on that book, and we're going to tank the sales. Good job, DC. You're really like just hastening your own demise.
And what's crazy, you know, obviously they do lean heavily on Batman. They lean more heavily on. What?
Like, I was just, again, I had another moment where it's just like, holy shit, where's the Tylenol?
Are you okay?
I'm okay, but like my blood pressure is going up because this is so freaking ridiculous. I'm so tired. I got really mad. I got really mad. You can leave all this in. I don't care.
Well, I'm sorry, Aaron. I'm going to try to make you angry.
No, but like I'm so pissed off about the utter incompetence. And it's more than that, just this lackadaisical attitude towards the books that people are putting out, towards the, what they're doing with these iconic characters. Everybody's just got their head up their ass. And it's like, how do you not? I know that there's all kinds of creators out there that would love to get on those characters and do something meaningful and restore them to their former glory, but it's just a bunch of nepotism and it's a bunch of idiots hiring other idiots.
Absolutely. Now, we do know that DC leans heavily on Batman. In fact, there are way more Batman comic books that come out, even like a Spider-Man character, but Batman wasn't even the best-selling character. The Spider-Man franchise grabbed the coveted first place spot by placing 37 issues in the top 10, 70 issues in the top 25, and 107 issues in the top 50 in 2023. The Batman franchise came in second with 24 issues in the top 10, 49 issues in the top 25, and 93 issues in the top 50. And it turns out just leveraging the one character that's working right now didn't even get them into the top spot for the franchise, even though probably twice as many Batman comic books or Batman-related comic books were released than Spider-Man and Spider-Man-related comic books.
Well, who wants to read a Batman comic when Batman isn't Batman anymore? It's like they killed off Alfred. They took away his money. It's like they keep, doing storylines where it's like, oh, look at how much better Catwoman is than him. Nobody wants to read that. People want to read Batman. You want to do a good Batman book? Of course, they can't hire him again because he's got the wrong politics. But, you put Chuck Dixon on a Batman book and people are going to come back and read Batman because he's actually going to write frickin' Bruce Wayne Batman. I
was kind of excited about Ram V going on to Detective Comics. I was like, oh, it'll be a different flavor or whatever. I've never been more wrong about anything in my life. It is the most boring, lame-ass, nothing, limp dick comic book starring Batman I've ever read in my life, and it's just gone on forever. He's still in the first story arc. I think he's been doing it for 2 years now.
It's weird to me that they even give somebody that because most people can't even get like a guarantee of 6 issues. It's like, pitch a 6-issue story, but, have plans to wrap it in 4 if things go wrong, is kind of the attitude. And they're just letting Ram V just write this story that nobody cares about. And Detective is dipped, so much. Is he just one of those guys that came in and he had like one big story, that kind of made people go, oh, this guy's pretty good, and then just has never delivered again?
Well, he did a couple of things on the indie scene. The one that really jumps out in my mind is these Savage Shores that I thought was really, really good. And he did a really cool, just awesome, like the best story during Future State was his Swamp Thing story. So they gave him the Swamp Thing book. It kind of sucked. His Catwoman stuff was all right. But now that they've upped him to like Detective Comics, it's the most boring, worst version of Ram V that you can get, to where he only wants to tell the one story, but he's like, oh, you're going to give me forever? I will take forever to tell that story. And it's like, it's the worst inclination that he has as a comic book creator, is to just meander and do nothing.
It's weird because that's kind of what's going on in the Nightwing book too, is it's just like this long meandering story that, and it's just weird that they're giving that to certain creators that, I don't think that you should ever give a long form story and say, let's just see where it goes. These are not guys that you should trust with that. I don't think that we,
Tom Taylor shouldn't be on ongoing series. He should only be on miniseries.
And Elseworlds miniseries.
Yes. Because he did a lot of bad work at Marvel as well before he came over to DC. DC has just hired a lot of really bad Marvel Comics leftovers and put them on a lot of premium characters. That certainly helped them, hurt them as well. Now, there was one good thing really in 2023 that happened to DC Comics. Brian Michael Bendis had basically destroyed the Superman character, Superman family, and Superman titles all within his 1.5 to 2 years on the brand. The Superman franchise finished in 5th place with 1 issue in the top 10, 12 issues in the top 25, and 33 issues in the top 50. DC Comics has to be happy to see the Superman franchise crack into the top 5. This is a positive sign for DC Comics as they head into 2024. It is vital that Superman franchise remain in the top 5. If DC Comics wants to avoid completely collapsing into irrelevancy, they need at least 2 franchises up there at the top. And they certainly did prioritize Superman. They put Josh Williamson on the Superman book. PKJ got to stay on the Action comic books basically all the way through 2023. And they were doing some miniseries and stuff on the side. And I do think they finally have rehabbed the character after the Brian Michael Bendis run and then the Tom Taylor Superman Son of Kal-El gay Superman story that he did that basically destroyed the flagship title, it feels like they may have rehabbed the title. He's not going to be a top 10 seller consistently like he was before, but at least he's in the top 100 again.
Why can't we get Superman there? I feel like there's got to be someone out there that can take Superman back in the top 10. He's such a great character, and he is the linchpin of the DC universe. How is it that we don't have a really good Justice League book? How is it that we
don't even have a Justice League book?
Yeah, how do you do that? How do we have this, all this news coming out that they're going to do an Ultimate Universe? I got an idea, DC. How about not doing an Ultimate Universe? How about just fixing the regular DC universe that we all give a shit about? Because I can guarantee you, your Ultimate Universe, you're going to bungle it. You're going to shoot yourself in the foot, like pretty much probably right out of the gate, because that's what you do. Remember Black Label? Remember that? Remember what a great success that was for 10 minutes before you ruined it? I just have no faith in Jim.
About Black Label.
Yeah, and I just have no faith in Jim Lee's leadership. I have no faith in the editors that are there at DC with what they're putting out. I just don't think anybody there has a vision. The vision has to come from the top. And like we said, Jim Lee's just fiddling while Rome burns. So
that is their one piece of good news. We'll end this talking about who were the worst writers, the 3 writers that had the most dead titles walking throughout the year. Becky Cloonan took 3rd place with 11 issues in the dead titles walking category. Cloonan also piled up a number of early entries in 2023. Before departing the Wonder Woman franchise, Alyssa Wong took 2nd place with 14 issues in the dead titles walking category. This is an impressive number, but it's not good enough to land the Tini Howard Award for 2023. Tini Howard gets the honors as she scored a 1st place finish with 17 issues in the dead titles walking category for the year. Therefore, Howard caps off 2023 by winning the Tini Howard Award. Not surprising to see Tini Howard have the most terrible selling comic books from Marvel and DC in the same calendar year. I don't understand why they still hire her.
She gets an absurd number of swings at bat. That's for damn sure. Like, they just keep giving her books, even though she's never done one successful book or one successful storyline where people have been like, hey, this is, I didn't like that other stuff, but this is pretty good. And again, you have to wonder, is this editorial? Like, did they just hand her a book and then not do any editing whatsoever? Not guide her, not tell her this doesn't work, this does work, cut this line, change this line, we're changing this line to this. I feel like a big part of this is just that the editors aren't doing their job. And maybe they're overworked because maybe they've got too many titles, because the company has to put out so many titles in order to maintain a certain profit margin to keep their corporate overlords off their back. But these creators are they're not it, man.
Well, and especially with Tini Howard, because they did the Batman crossover between Tini Howard's Catwoman and Chip Zdarsky's Batman, which was already waning as far as quality, and she basically bombed it out with Gotham War. It was the stupidest, nonsensical fucking thing that ever happened in Batman, and shockingly, Tini Howard was a part of it.
Whose idea was that?
It's got to be Tini's, but maybe it was Chip's. He seems like a male feminist.
Yeah.
He's got to have the card in his wallet,
He's done some good stuff, but he's
it's been a while though.
It's been a while. It's like since Daredevil, right? Like that's the last.
And I really enjoyed his Daredevil. That the end of his Spectacular Spider-Man was really good. The first 3 or 4 issues of his Batman was pretty damn good. So we shall see. DC Comics does have bigger plans in 2024, specifically this Ultimate style DC Comics reboot that we should be seeing in the not too distant future. But it's got to be better than 2023 because they basically bottomed out.
One can hope. It seems like we're finally getting some ideas that are, they're trying to lure creators back. But I don't know, man. I don't the cancer maybe has spread too far. The patient may not be savable at this point. And, we could get into 2024 and things could start to look up and then they could get sold. There's all kinds of crazy stuff that we're hearing news of. So, here's to a wild ride this year.
I do want to say, Aaron and I are not done. This is just the beginning of the Geek Fix podcast. We've got another hour and 40 minutes in us that's going to be exclusive on Patreon that you definitely want to go check out. If you haven't seen it, there's a link in the video description. And Aaron and I bring the pop culture funnies every single week.
Join the Patreon and see if I have an aneurysm today.
I'm about to have an aneurysm because my video was lagging at the end of that.